there's a school of thought that a lot of the reggae dancehall acts that are being signed right now, they get signed and then they eventually get dropped in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Do you think that is actually the case? And if it is, what would you say could explain this phenomena? That sounds like a college question.
I think
for 15 marks.
Yeah, I think that phenomenon is somewhat true. It's probably overblown a little bit. I think that the number one thing about when you get signed to a major label is about who signed you, who the A&R was. And as soon as that A&R leaves the company, you're screwed. It's game over.
So that happens a lot of the time.
That happens all the time. That A&R, they are the one who's advocating for you to everybody else at the company because their ass is on the line for signing you. Bono. So they want you to be successful, right? So... So like that's one big reason for it. And the other reason I think is, as I said, this not thinking about audience growth because their goal is to win the lottery. The label's goal is to sign 100 things and have one thing win. And the other 99 can lose because the one thing that wins is going to go huge, right? If you have Taylor Swift or Beyonce, like you can have thousands of things that lose money and you're still like winning big time. So if you're focused on winning the lottery, you're not taking those consistent shots on goal. You're just trying to have viral moments. And so you're thinking, okay, well, let's just get one thing to go viral, the other 99 not, instead of thinking about how to build audience and grow sustainably. Now there's exceptions to that. And there are people who are doing things the right way, obviously. But I think that a big piece of it is like, all right, are you understanding the culture that this music comes from? Are you understanding that the number one most important thing for this being successful is for it to be consumed by the people that made that music get there in the first place and that first ring of people around it? And if you're not focused on that and you're like, all right, let's put a big budget into a music video, let's put a big budget into digital marketing. It's like, no one cares about you in a place that no one knows you, right? They're going to start to care about you if, you know, look at Drift and Taliban's, like what happened with those songs when by the time they're playing on Hot 97 and they're top of the Shazam charts in New York City, which is crazy. Like for that to have happened, but that happened after it hit like very much in the core. Like it didn't, no one was like, let's go dump all this money into radio off the bat. It wouldn't make any sense, right? No, it's not going to work because the program directors at like the major stations, they're going to ask the mix show DJs, is this song hot? And if that person says no, they're not going to start playing it. So there's a direction that you have to go with it. You got to start with certain types of DJs and certain radio stations, things like that, so that by the time you're pitching it to certain people, they actually will consider it. If you pitch it to certain people off the bat, they're going to be like, ask one person, they're like, no, the song's not hot, moving on. But if you follow a path that involves starting with your first ring of people and going beyond, then you have much more potential for the song to actually work.
So when you mean your point, like we've heard that label heads don't really know what the fuck is popping. They rely on these A&Rs, essentially.
The algorithms too.
And the algorithms. So with that being said, how much ambulance chasing would you say happens with these A&Rs? Or them? Like,
I think that when you see a Drift and a Taliban's come out, where I can't really think of what the last song was from Dancehall that did what those two songs did in terms of like actually moving.
One of them questionably dancer.
Sure. Go Down Day, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Go Down Day, right? So, but that song had Shaggy and Sean on it. Yeah. So for the songs to come from a TJ who was obviously very hot within the core, and then like Byron, where it's like this is like relatively unknown. So I think that what that does is then people see these two songs go and they're like, oh, let's go sign some Jamaican artists. Let's get involved in dancehall. Boom, boom, boom. Then 2 years go by and they're like, oh no, we can't figure out how this works, how to make this work. And then you see people stop investing again. And then something else is going to pop off in 3-4 years. And they're saying, okay, cool. All right, let's come back in because they're trying to win the lottery. They're not focused on the build. Now there's certain, like if you think about Masicka as an interesting example, right? Because Tunji, who signed Masicka as the CEO of Def Jam, comes from an A&R background, and like I know for a fact that he genuinely like really wants Masicka to break and cares about it. Like there are examples of people who like actually care and want it to work, and then there are cases where it's like, you're just going to see these trends come and go, and I think that's the part where it's like, if my thing is, I think the number one most important thing that we need to be doing as a industry in terms of like education and getting things out there is to teach artists how to grow audiences on their own without being reliant on labels. The goal should not be signed by anybody, including myself. The goal should not be getting signed. The goal should be, how do I learn how to grow my audience through consistent, cohesive releases forever, where I'm studying and getting better at production, getting better at writing. The music is getting better, the marketing is getting better, and I'm learning how to do this myself. If you do that and everyone does that and everyone learns to do that, the label interest in 5 years and in 10 years is going to be much greater, and there's going to be way more leverage to get deals that work better for everyone.
Do you think that mindset is more present with Afrobeats and dancehall?
Yeah, but the reason that the Afrobeats versus dancehall thing, like the reason why that happened to me isn't that complicated. It's the fact that the diaspora size that you have from Afrobeats in Africa versus people all like to criticize all these different elements of what's going on in dancehall, and I get why, but like quite simply, like there's 30-40 million people, right? We talk about the first ring of people, right? So that's why I say it needs to really hit in Miami and Toronto and New York and in these people, because that's what you have. Afrobeats is just much larger. So it's just like reggaeton, right? Reggaeton takes a dembow beat, and Latin music is now massive. Bad Bunny's like the biggest artist in the world. So I think it's really just a matter of like, there's a huge unfair advantage that dancehall is going to always have. That means that those like
dancehall or Afrobeat.
No, dancehall.
Dancehall.
We'll
Dancehall.
have an unfair advantage.
Unfair disadvantage.
Because
disadvantage. Unfair disadvantage. Because because of the size of diaspora. Which means that the whole hitting that first ring of people as hard as possible is even more important. Because you have to get that support. Right.
I know. I mean, we've had this conversation really ad nauseum. But the thing is like, it's like, say it's unfair to compare dancehall to Afrobeat or, whatever. But we've seen the success of dancehall. Like we can see where dancehall was and what could have been. Yeah. And then it's like a dramatic. Yeah. And we can safe to say a fall off, like a dramatic fall off. And but we see where, people get signed, them get dropped. Like there's a little interest there, as you say, and it drop. But it's like, what can we do to create a sustain? Like the size of it's 3 million of us here in the country, but like the Jamaican diaspora is huge
and
around
Caribbean,
the world.
And not just Jamaican. It has to be the whole.
Because the core music, the Caribbean is really dancehall apparently.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's the excuse of it being unfair or to compare. It's not fair because we had it. We had the massive looking and success once upon a time. Right. So what happened?
Well, if you think about it, 20, 30 years that have gone on since 90s dancehall, if that's the era you're talking about, 90s, early 2000s, right? Yeah. Early 2000s.
That was the height, the zenith, right?
Early 2000s.
Yeah.
2003.
Yeah.
So 20 years from then to now, the way in which like these different audiences grow and these platforms exist has changed dramatically, where amplifying things and getting things out there is much easier than it was then. Yeah. So the ability for music to like cross continents and do this is much easier now, where that whole effect of what I'm talking about, that first ring size, is much more like relevant, if that makes sense. And I think obviously the argument about this music is more danceable, and the music that people are making now is less danceable. Drift, a big part of the success was that it was a danceable song. Like that made it accessible.
Hey, and I rhythm that song there, and the rhythm alone, like the rhythm, as Nars says,
the rhythm itself is catchy.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, because DJ pretty much never said much words on the song.
Right. You don't need to. So
right, I think the whole glory from TJ.
Right. I'm not saying like put up in that.
All right, TJ never had nothing to it. All right.
His melodies added to it, but the rhythm is what sell the song.
Yeah, so I think the danceable aspect of it, like that whole argument people make, I think is fair for sure. I also think though that there's this whole issue with like when people talk about the market share thing and all these different elements, it's like people want to then say, okay, here's a big dancehall artist. Let's just do a collab with this big Afrobeats artist and let's put this song out. And then the Afrobeats artist doesn't promote the song, right? Unless they see it moving already. They don't want to maybe post it or like, so there are situations like that because people think like, oh, the way that I'm going to make the biggest song possible is to just do this collaboration and then that's going to do it. But the better way to do it would be to create the song that the first ring of people like and love, and then you tap in that market because it's already hot and you know there's like essentially like a market test that people love this song once they hear it, so you know to bring it to further people. I think what happens is people spend all this money, labels and others, to get these huge features on these songs that do nothing because nobody cares about that song in that other artist's country, and so it creates a situation that's not sustainable.
Exactly.
I want
She's like,
zero,
trying to play the lottery.
Yeah, I want zero in on
Lottery.
Shenseea.
Trying to win lottery.
On Shenseea a bit. Because she's a curious case study, if you will. She signed. It seems like she, in the beginning of being signed, kind of pushed away her core audience. Tried to ingratiate herself with a US audience. Didn't seem to quite work. No, it seems like she's trying to re-ingratiate herself with the core audience. From your perspective, what do you make of that?
You see how before we were just talking generally?
Yeah.
You know, and here's what he thinks. No, I mean, I think that, like, obviously Shenseea is an insanely talented artist. I think that, to me, like, making decisions based around, like, what are the odds of success doing this versus doing that, right? And the odds of success doing it that way are just much lower than the odds of success if you focused in on your core first and trying to create records that went beyond. I mean, I think if you're trying to be Rihanna made Pon de Replay first, right? That's like patois. Like she didn't. So I think that's the challenge there, because I think that any artist shouldn't be boxed into a genre. You shouldn't be like, oh, you're Jamaican, then you got to be a dancehall artist, right? Yeah. You should make whatever you want to make, whatever you feel comfortable with, whatever, right? I just think that ultimately if you go full pop with it, that you're being thrown into the winning the lottery system where you're reliant on a label that is trying to break 99 other acts. Yeah. And
you're competing with people like,
because they're trying to blow you up only.
Doja Cat.
That's all. They're trying to make you Doja Cat or bust. They're trying to either you're either blowing up or nothing, because it's not worth it to them otherwise, because these companies are worth billions and billions of dollars, and they make all their money from old catalog. All the music, all the money that they make comes from, or not all, but the majority of it comes from songs that came out 20, 30, 40 years ago.
I'm falling for you, straight up to the sky, yeah.
Girl, you're pretty like roses, roses. You caught my eyes, I can't focus. I'm in love with the vibe, you notice. Got from you, make the call and tell me say you want me pull up on you, my darling.
Truth is, love hurts. I think I want the money instead.
Cause I'll never run a man down after I'm in a track star. Call down phone and never got that far. I eat that boy can go on. As one gone and next one. This hurt my ego. Me no, she don't got it like me.